This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What is going on, everyone? It's your guy Cole Jackson back here on Road Creators, brought to you today by SportsUS. Check the link out down below for all of your online betting needs. Thank you to them for sponsoring this episode. And today we're hopping back in. We did quarterback last week. I was planning on doing every position, but honestly, I don't know if you guys realize Baltimore Ravens play on Friday. So we got a lot to go through, short amount of time. I'm going to try and keep this pretty tight, not make it too long. So there's a couple things I want to accomplish with this video. Obviously, I want to give you guys an overview of the positions, some of my thoughts on the position battles, and some of my expectations for kind of the obvious starters. Obviously talk a little bit about the O-line because we're going to be focused on the offense broadly, but I also want to introduce you guys to some of the guys that are UDFAs that you may not know a whole lot about, guys that if you want to watch these games, maybe you just want to know a thing or two, maybe a couple of fun facts about them, what they did in college, that sort of thing. So dug into some of their background so I can give you guys all that good information. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. If you guys are enjoying these breakdowns, if you're excited for Baltimore Ravens football to be back on Friday, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and check out the link down below for BetUS and their online sports book. Lots of good stuff on there, good deals. So make sure to check that out. So let's dive right into it. Let's not waste any time. I'm going to start with the running back position, one that is the most interesting group for the Baltimore Ravens and my time as a Ravens fan, because we have Derrick Henry coming in, and this is, I wouldn't say it's the biggest free agent signing because of where Derrick Henry's at his point in his career, but it's got to be one of the biggest name signings in the history of the Ravens. Obviously, they've signed a lot of big names in the past, but this is a guy that's a bona fide Hall of Famer where he's not at the complete tail end of his career. I think he's got a little bit of juice left. So bringing him in, this is going to be very exciting. And, when I'm looking at production and some of the expectations around him, if you look at what Gus Edwards did last year, all the work on the goal line in the red zone, short yardage situations, now you're bringing in Derrick Henry, a guy that fits Todd Monken's zone scheme where we kind of saw that transition last year. That's what he did so well in Tennessee. I know he's known as being an absolute beast and a tank runner, but he's actually more of an elusive runner when you actually dive into his film. The way he sets up blocks and runs away from guys, and honestly, his stiff arm and running through arm tackles is a lot bigger of a factor in his game than straight up trucking guys or running through them. Obviously, that plays a role down in tight situations, but in the open field, it's really his elusiveness and just how well he's able to get that low center of gravity at his size. He's really hard to tackle one-on-one. So I think that's going to play a huge role. It's going to be super helpful to getting this offense going. When they need to lean in on it, they can lean in on a guy like Derrick Henry. No disrespect to Gus Edwards, but I honestly look at Derrick Henry like Gus on steroids. Like that's just kind of how I look at him. So very excited for this signing. And then you got Justice Hill, who has emerged now as a really solid pass catching back. You saw last year in Tennessee where Derrick Henry played a lot of the early downs. They brought in Tyjae Spears. I think it's going to be kind of a similar setup where Justice Hill plays that Spears role and is able to play on third downs, pass blocking situations, as well as offer some juice. He broke off some big runs last year. His development has been really impressive. He's a guy where his roster spot was kind of in jeopardy, and he basically used special teams to stay on the Ravens. And then that was going into like his third year coming off the injury, and then, took off as a running back. So just his career has been really interesting to follow. So I'm really looking forward to this 1-2 punch. It's going to be a lot different than a J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. I'm not expecting the 50-50 timeshare we've been seeing out of the Ravens, but I do think Hill comes in and adds some juice behind Henry. And then you have Rasheen Ali. So I'll drop a link down below. I did a film review on him. I spent a lot of time on him because I wasn't overly thrilled with his film. He had pretty good, actually, no, not pretty good. He had insane production over a couple years at Marshall. But when I got into his film, he didn't have a lot of, broken tackles. His analytics on broken tackle rates wasn't very high. Break all that down, as well as show you what I'm talking about. So this is a guy that, he's a 5th round pick. He's going to come in, he's going to compete, but I fully expect him to win the RB3 role. And I think he can also play a little bit of special teams. I think he was playing off an injury last year that I tried to factor into the analysis I did of him. Please go check that out, because I don't want to make it seem like it's all negative. He's a guy that completely fits the zone scheme that they want to run. So by, having that aspect to his game, I think it's going to go really well for him. But go check out that. I think there's a ton of strengths there. I'm just worried about when he gets in the open field, he kind of lost that ability to make guys miss. And if that doesn't come back post injury, he's going to have a really hard time. And then we get into Owen Wright and Chris Collier. And these are, you guys will remember Owen Wright from last year, product of Monmouth. He had a pretty solid preseason with the Ravens last year, 107 yards on 23 carries, scored a touchdown. But he's more of a throwback power runner. I thought he was a better fit for a gap scheme. So, I'm really not sure how much he's going to be able to push Rasheen Ali for that third spot or stay on the special teams. Stay on the practice squad with that kind of special teams upside. But, I give him a lot of credit because he did play really well and he's playing against threes, third strings, four strings, but that's who you have to go out and dominate. And I thought he was really solid last year. So he'll definitely get a look. I'm expecting Rasheen Ali to get a lot of run this year. And then Owen Wright and Collier, there's kind of your 1, 2, 3 punch through the preseason. I don't think you'll see much of Henry or Hill. So it'll be fun to kind of watch these three compete against each other. And Chris Collier, he's a UDFA from Lock Haven, D2 or D3 school. He caught a lot of buzz after he went to Temple University for their pro day in March, and he finished if he would have done the combine with his pro day numbers, he would have been in the top 10 for running backs in the 40 bench press and the vert and broad. He also ranked first in the shuttle and 3 cone. So athletic freak. This is a guy that if there's a bold prediction or there's one guy that's going to push Ali, it's going to be Collier. He runs angry. He's super athletic. He led the PSAC last year in total rushing with 1,300 yards, almost 14. It was like 1,395. So almost 1,400 yards, 126 yards per game, 12 touchdowns. And he took the ball to the Eagles to their first 5-win season. And John Harbaugh talked about him a little bit back at the end of rookie minicamp. He said he was a dominant player at that level against, lesser college competition, and you expect him to be able to play in the NFL. He came out here and looked like he belonged. He's quick and fast and strong and just looks the part. So he's going to have a chance to make the team just like everybody else. He looked really good. A little bit of coach speak there at the end, but this is a guy where if I had to place money on someone to upset and make the team or an injury happens, it'd be Chris Collier because he's just got that juice. I don't want to compare him to Keaton Mitchell because I don't think it's the same situation, but he had that type of athleticism where I'm surprised someone didn't bet on him by grabbing him, in the 7th, just to and I remember people said that about Keaton Mitchell last year too. So really looking forward to that. I think this is going to be a fun group of running backs. The Ravens like to compete in these preseason games, and looking forward to this running back group. And the big question is, are you ready to take your game to the next level? Look no further than BetUS, your ultimate destination for all things betting. BetUS offers the fastest payouts in the industry, so you won't be waiting around when you hit that big win. And when you sign up, you can get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Depositing and withdrawing is a breeze with BetUS's fast and easy process, and with 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year. You're never alone. BetUS isn't just about the basics. They offer live wagering on all major games and the best betting varieties in the business. Plus, get 10% on your net losses twice a year. And here's a real game changer. You can actually go out there and get your very own personal account manager. Click the link in the description to get your BetUS account starting and hit those big bucks. And I just posted here a couple of lines that are on BetUS. Some that look like free money. Derrick Henry rushing yards are set at 97.5. He's going over 1,000. I'm going to literally put money on it. And Lamar Jackson's pass touchdowns. He's never been below 24 when he's healthy. So you're betting on his health here. He's going to go over 22.5. So go out, check those out. Click the link down below. Supports me, supports the channel. I appreciate it. Jumping into the tight end group. This one's going to be a little bit boring. Pending injury. We all know what's going on here. There's going to be 4 tight ends on this roster. Yes, I list Ricard as a he's an H-back, but he's not really a fullback anymore. He mostly plays tight end. But you're going to have Andrews, Likely, Kolar, Ricard. None of these guys are pushing them. No disrespect to them. Looking forward to what they can do in the preseason games, fight for practice squad spots. The only thing that I would throw out there as a possibility is you never know if a guy like Charlie Kohler could end up getting traded. Now, I don't really see the point in it because you would need to get at least the type of draft capital you spent on him, because if you're only getting a fifth, sixth, seventh round pick, he's more valuable to the team as depth than he is going for that. He's looked really good so far. I've heard nothing but good things. So a trade of him isn't so much about him as a player. It's just, what's his lineup to, like, what's his path to an opportunity here? Likely he's the next in line if Mark Andrews goes down. He showed that last year. He played the Mark Andrews role. I thought Kolar had played more of that split out role, but likely did everything Andrews could do. So, they're just in a situation where it's going to be hard to get Kolar on the field. I do expect a lot more two tight end sets this year, but still tough to get him on the field. So, I don't think it's going to happen, but if there was a path, and why I want to kind of focus on these other four guys is you never know what could happen. So, when we jump into the other four, obviously the name that stands out is Kader Ismail, son of former Ravens Super Bowl champion and friend of the channel, Kadri Ismail. So he's been a fun career to watch. He transitioned from college quarterback to wide receiver, and now he's transitioning to tight end. Big body frame, more of a field stretcher as a tight end. He's going to have to improve those blocking skills, but he just seems like he's an athlete. Goes out, does what he's asked, seems really easy to coach. Making those transition is not easy. Coaches just sing his praises. So a guy that I think has a real shot to kind of stick around, become a special teamer, and who knows down the road with his type of athleticism. So really excited to watch him and see, another Ismail here in Baltimore. So I'm really excited about that. Mike Rigerman, he's a guy that I think has a shot to stick around on practice squad because he's listed as a tight end, but he's kind of reminds me of Ricard. He's wearing number 35, more of that fullback number. He's a product of D2 Findlay College, set the school record for over 1,800 yards and 21 touchdowns in his career there. So he does have some receiving chops, but he's kind of coming in as that kind of backup fullback role. The Ravens have tended to kind of keep a fullback around. They kind of kept Ben Mason around when he was able to play special teams. They really value Patrick Ricard's role. So someone that can backfill that, has a little bit of play on the practice squad. So I expect Rigerman to play a lot of that Ricard role when we're in the second, third, fourth team offense. So I think he's going to play a lot. So you guys should keep an eye out on him. Scotty Washington's a guy. He's bounced around. He came in 2020 as a UDFA. He was with the Bengals, the Steelers, and I think, was it the Patriots? Maybe not. But he's bounced around practice squads. He's a guy that, he's going to be out there. He's going to make plays. Mostly a special teamer, but I just really don't see a shot with him. He's an older guy. They wanted to bring a vet in. I get it, but just not a lot of value to add to this roster right now. And then Riley Sharp is a guy that's really interesting to me. He's a converted linebacker who played linebacker his first 3 years as tight end his last 2 years. He only caught 7 balls last year. He's a true special teamer. But a guy, he's out of Oregon State, but we know how the Ravens look at these versatile guys who can play special teams, especially a guy that has the athleticism to play tight end, can play defense, that kind of guy. Could shock people. I'm really excited to watch him, see what kind of comes out of it. When we go into the wide receiver group, again, I don't really see a ton of competition here. You got Zay, you got Rashad, you got Nelson Aguilar. There's your 1, 2, 3. Like, I don't think anyone's really going to question that. If Devontae Walker can take some really fast steps, I think he could get into the playing rotation early as that field stretcher that, and I'll drop the link down below because I spent a lot of time on his film. He had some really good matchups with Nate Wiggins. I thought that matchup against between North Carolina and Clemson was a lot of fun. I have a lot of those clips in that video, so go check that out if you're interested. And then you got Tylan Wallace, who has become kind of the special teams ace. He can play gunner. We saw what he did in the walk-off against the Rams last year. With these transitioning kickoff rules, he has a little bit more value, right? But honestly, like, I think his role as a returner got a little bit overstated. Obviously that play he made was incredible as a punt returner, but he didn't do a whole lot else as a returner. So I just don't want to make it seem like he's some all-pro returner, that sort of thing. And that's why they brought in Deontay Hardy. He didn't do a lot as a receiver. For the Bills last year when they were hungry for a receiver to step up opposite Stephon Diggs. So he's a guy that, again, has that returner background, a guy that fits really well in this new kickoff system that they're going to be running. And so, he's kind of your 6, and, them rounding out as 5-6 receivers with that ability to also play a return role and some special teams gives them a lot of viability onto this roster. So, the 1 to 6 role, I think it seems pretty locked in there, but they have some interesting, current and former UDFAs that I think is going to be really interesting. So obviously Sean Ryan was a guy that we got familiar with last year, big body that, a lot of people were looking to make an impact. I don't think he was as good in the preseason as we were expecting from practice reports. That's typically how it goes in Baltimore with UDFA wide receiver practice reports. But one guy that is really interesting to me, and I think this is going to be your guy, your Tim White, the guy that just blows up the preseason, and we're like, how do we forget? How did this guy not get drafted? And that's Dayton Wade at Ole Miss. I think many considered him a draft snub. Really good combine numbers, 4.4 40, 4.24 shuttle, jump 10.5 in the broad. And really what I noticed was Patrick Ricard on the Green Light podcast had this to say. We have a receiver. His last name is Wade. He's number 18. I'm just seeing him every day. This man's flashing. He's looking really crisp when he runs his routes. He's catching all the balls. He has strong hands. He doesn't say too much. He just puts his head down and constantly makes plays. I think he's going to make some noise in the preseason. I just remembered his name. It's Dayton Wade. I think he's a guy to look out for. And I tend to agree with Ricard there. I think this is a guy that will make plays. I think he's going to blow up this preseason. It just kind of reminds me of that scenario, especially with the Ravens having, he's going to play those kind of third, fourth team reps. The Ravens are going to have Devin Leary and Josh Johnson doing a lot of that work, probably Devin Leary, and Dayton Wade being that kind of slot receiver that can be pretty explosive. That connection could click really quick and could really pop in terms of statistical production. So really looking forward to see what those guys can do. Malik Cunningham, I don't want to send any disrespect to this guy because anyone that converts positions works as hard as he does. I just have so much, respect for. But the Ravens struggle to develop receivers with wide receiver backgrounds. I just struggle to see him getting developed as a wide receiver. Hope he shuts me up. Hope he develops. Would love to see it. The story is incredible. But I personally just don't see it. I think he's going to have a really hard time, making the roster. But as a practice squad candidate, given the kind of versatility, some of the stuff he could do as a sub package guy, they may want to keep him around. So I think he's got a real chance to kick around in the NFL and kind of make a career out of it. So kudos to him. And then Keith Kirkwood, much like Scotty Washington, a guy that's kind of bounced around. He played early for the Saints. I think he was UDFA or a late round pick in 2018 to the Saints. I know he played early there and then he kind of fell out of favor. So a guy that is going to come in and kind of reminds me of a less high draft pedigree of a Laquan Treadwell. They just want to bring in a vet, can play those preseason games, kind of camp fodder, help out the young lads. So we're going to see Keith Kirkwood, and he's probably going to make some big plays because, that experience going against some guys that will be out of the league in a few weeks. So I could definitely see that. Moving on to the tackle situation, one that I think a lot of fans have some anxiety over. If you look at the unofficial depth chart, you'll see Ronnie and Patrick McCary as your starting offensive tackles. Quickly on Ronnie, all I've heard is nothing but good things about his health. I think you guys all saw that clip of him, or I think he posted on Instagram of, what was it? Jonas Schaefer tweeted about an offensive lineman scoring a touchdown. They obviously ran a trick play. And then Ronnie posted the Instagram post of him getting up and getting the ball. It was a jump ball situation, and Ronnie got it for the touchdown. So seeing the health, the confidence, he's in a contract year because of the way they set up his contract. So I'm trying not to get too hyped. I know that there's injury risk, but a healthy Ronnie Stanley in a contract year, motivated, here to play good football. I can't think of a better situation for Lamar Jackson's blindside. So looking forward to seeing it. I hope he earns more money, and I hope he stays healthy. That's really what it comes down to. When he's healthy, he's good. Simple as that. When he's hurt, he struggles. Simple as that. So stay healthy, Ronnie, and let's see what you can do. Patrick McCary's holding down that right tackle spot, trying to get Roger Rosengarten up to speed. This isn't a surprise to me. Yeah, they do this every year. They never start rookies out the gate, especially if they're not first rounders. Rosengarten is a guy that I dropped the link down below. Loved his tape. So much fun stuff to his game, but a guy that was lacking physically in terms of functional strength. He's just going to have to develop that area of his game, and I think he will. But while he does that, it's going to take a little bit of time. I think he starts week 1. I think McCary pushes him, though, and gives him a good competition, and that's why you pay McCary what you pay him. He's a kind of 6-man. He's that guy that can, be that seasoned vet, push these guys. And then Josh Jones, one of my favorite free agent signings. I really wanted them to draft a developmental left tackle. And like with Josh Jones, leave him at left tackle. Don't move him. Don't move him inside. Leave him at left tackle. He was actually decent as a left tackle when he was in Arizona, when they let him stay there. In Houston last year, was it Houston? Yeah, Houston. They moved him all around and he struggled. Leave him at left tackle. See what you get out of him. Could be one of those situations where, you develop him over the year. Ronnie walks in free agency and maybe you have a starter there. Maybe. But leave him at left tackle. I think in the picture I posted, he's at right tackle beside Falele. So that's hilarious. But, I would leave him at left tackle, wouldn't move him. Then you get into a very fun group of UDFAs. Probably the best. Yeah, I would say the best UDFAs the Ravens have brought in for offensive tackles. These guys are fun. You guys would be familiar if you're Maryland Terrapin fans of Corey Bullock, one of the highest graded pass blocking tackles last year by PFF in college football. He's going to be a guy that I believe he started at right tackle. He's one of those guys that could surprise you, right? And then you get Julian Pearl, who he started at right tackle in 2022, left tackle in 2023, and a guy that I scouted, loved him as a player, thought he was a great, when I was talking about Josh Jones and drafting a developmental left tackle, Pearl was on my list of guys that I would have taken in that 5th, 6th, 7th round to bring in here and develop. So to get him as a UDFA is just awesome. I love his run blocking skills, really refined. He just needs technical work in his pass blocking, a lot of oversetting, processing issues, gets his hands out over his feet, but has a lot of athleticism, has good functional strength. So a lot of those kind of core competencies I think are there, just some of the minor details. So this is a guy that I genuinely think could be a factor down the road. And then Daryl Simpson, I just love getting guys like this, 6'8", 335, one of the biggest wingspans in this rookie class. Reminds me a little bit size-wise of Orlando Brown Jr., but just doesn't move like him. And, that's what we need in Todd Monken's scheme. So his path to success is if they're in a 5-man pass block set, how well can he get out in space and kick step and make blocks. So looking forward to see how he can do when he doesn't have help from tight ends. But a guy that I genuinely think could make a push here. So like I said, these are 3 guys, high pedigrees, all coming from P5 schools. Really excited to see what they can do. And then we get into the guard situation. So Andrew Voorhees, everything I've heard has been positive. I think he's grabbing that left guard run or that role and running with it. I'm not expecting him to lose it. Right guard is where things are just very confusing. You kind of got Ben Cleveland and Daniel Falele battling for it. Salah hasn't really played a ton from the sounds of it. I think he's kind of that left guard 2 behind Voorhees. We saw last year in the preseason, it was kind of a dumpster fire. So we'll see it again this year. How much can he develop? I think it's going to be something fun, something I'm definitely going to be following because there's no denying that there were some really raw skills there that could be developed. So I don't want to discount him. I don't want to act like he can't become a better football player because he absolutely can. He's going to have an uphill battle in terms of fan opinion because last year went really poorly, but he works his ass off. He's big. He's physical. So I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. And then Falele, that's the guy to keep an eye on. That's going to be probably my first video next week is how did Daniel Falele do at right guard? He's starting at right guard right now if you look at the depth chart. And a lot of people have asked what's my opinion on him. And it's kind of a cop-out, but I don't really have one because his skill set at tackle is so much different than what he's being asked to do at guard. He struggles with pad level. He struggles with, getting his hands out, and now he's inside where things are quicker, things are lower. So how well can he make that transition? I can't really say until I see it. So I'm really looking forward to breaking him down. Ben Cleveland, I can't figure this guy out. Every time he's played for the Ravens, he's been all right. He's never been a liability. He's been as good as a good player, right? Like in those spot starts he's had against the Steelers in the last 2 years, he's been good. Like he played well. So I don't know what it is. The coaches don't seem to trust him. We're kind of entering what it was last year where he's just not even really getting a full shot. Like he's going to rotate in, obviously, but it seems like Falele got the jump on the job. So I can't figure Cleveland out. It drives me nuts. And then we get into the returning practice squad guys and Tayshawn Manning and Tykeem Doss. Tayshawn Manning was the Ravens' highest graded practice squad player preseason player last year. He was dominant against third, fourth. I wanted him in that third game to start so bad just to see it against higher competition. We didn't get to see it, but just a guy that I'm so intrigued by. I hope he gets a shot, and I think he's a real dark horse to make this roster. Tykeem Doss is a kind of a warm body, but has a little bit of versatility and a guy that plays big, plays physical. I think Ravens fans are really going to love him if they dial in. And then Darian Dalcourt, I heard, is a guy that played a little bit of center this week with Tyler Linderbaum out. So he's a Marylander. He played for Alabama, had some part-time starts. He's got a huge uphill to climb because for a guy his size, I think he's 6'2", 320. He just doesn't seem to have the athleticism I'd want from a guy that's a bit undersized. So it's kind of like tweener where, he's not the fastest guy. He's not the most athletic or the strongest guy. What's he going to be able to do? But developing that center versatility, we might see him in there as kind of that third, fourth team center behind Nick Samac or even ahead of Nick Samac. And then that leads us into the center, the last portion of this conversation. Tyler Linderbaum is going to be an all-pro this year. I'm marking it down right now as they transition into that zone scheme with Derrick Henry. He's going to be led to the promised land by Tyler Linderbaum. Mark it down. And then Nick Samac is a guy that I'm excited to watch in the preseason. I hope he gets a little bit of playing time because his raw athleticism is super exciting, but I think he needs a full year in the weight room. You guys will have seen they brought in Connor Williams for a visit. He's coming off a torn ACL in December, so I don't know if he's ready to go, but I think they're a little worried about where Nick Samac is at. I would imagine a lot of that's related to his functional strength. I think he's got that long-term backup potential, but he needs a year in the weight room. So that brings us into our 53-man prediction. I'm just going to put it up on the screen and walk through it. So you guys will have heard me last week. Lamar Jackson and Devin Leary with Josh Johnson on the practice squad. My rationale for that is you can do unlimited elevations for that practice squad QB. So Josh Johnson will be kind of called up as one of the two players every week, but I think they give Devin Leary the practice squads or the 53-man roster spot because I don't think teams will poach Josh Johnson. I think they might go after Devin Leary just because if he has any sort of success in the preseason, teams will be desperate to round out their roster and look for a backup quarterback. Running back, I do have Ali making this spot. I think Collier is going to push it, but I think Ali ends up winning based on draft pedigree and being good enough. When we look at the tight ends, it's boring. You guys know the four. There's no upsets that I'm expecting here, pending injuries. You look at the tackle situation, again, it's a little boring. I got Stanley and Rosengarten starting. McCary's going to be kind of your sixth man. Josh Jones is that developmental left tackle. Really like that setup. When you look at guard, there's a little bit of an upset there. There's a name missing, a name that I actually like. But I have Tayshaun Manning making this team over Ben Cleveland. That's probably my biggest upset, my 53-man prediction. Drop a comment down below. I want to hear what you guys think of that. I think Voorhees and Falele start. I think Tayshaun Manning is your depth guy. I think Salah is also either on practice squad or off the team. And then I have Linderbaum and Nick Samac. I'm a little worried about Samac. If they bring in a vet center or if McCary loses that right tackle job and becomes a backup center early, I think maybe Samac's job might be in jeopardy. But given McCary is going to be focusing a lot on right tackle while Roger Rosengarten gets a little bit of play, I think Nick Samac's going to win that backup center job, kind of the spot that Sam Mustipher held last year, kind of by default. And then no upsets in the wide receiver room. A little bit of a boring 53-man prediction, but I think there's just a lot of spots that are pretty solidified on this roster right now, pending injuries, obviously, but just not a lot of spots where I see a whole lot of area for upsets. So that's what I have for you guys. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys think. What do you think I'm out to lunch on? What do you think I'm right about? Drop a comment down below. You guys know I love to hear from you. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and as always, thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this. Check the link down below. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.